This is your definitive guide to Living End in 7-Point Highlander. So I've been play testing this deck and building it since Lorwyn spoiler season. I've been working on it kind of non-stop, playing it almost every single event since then, and I want to showcase a new awesome deck to build and play in 7-Point Highlander as well. So namesake card of the deck, Living End. We're looking to cheat this card into play, avoid paying the suspend cost, and set it up so we are at an advantage after this card resolves. So two versions of this card we've got in the deck is Living End, the suspend version, and Living Death, the same exact card for 5 mana. So it says each player removes all creature cards from his or her graveyard from the game, and then sacrifices all creatures he or she controls, then puts all cards into play he or she removed this way. So effectively you're putting your creatures in grave to exile, sacrificing all in play, and then putting the ones from exile into play. A bit of a 3-piece move around for only 2 zones, but it's really important when versing cards like Grafdigger's Cage that care about creatures entering the battlefield from graveyards or libraries. This notably does get around that, so this is really important. So how are we casting Living End if we're not going to suspend it? So we're using a few Cascade spells in the deck, as well as one Converge spell as well. So this is a 4-color, no white combo deck, so we're looking to cast either Shardless Agent, Demonic Dread, Violent Outburst, or Bring to Light. These will be your 4 cards you'll be casting Living End via, or if you have a treasure from Fable of the Mirrorbreaker, you're able to cast Bring to Light for 5 colors to go and find a Living Death to cast that as well. So how are we setting up our Living End? What cards are we putting into our graveyard, and how is this all going to work? So we've got a bunch of supporting cast here as well. So we've got Overlord of the Balemerc. This is a 2-mana impending creature, which mills the top 4 cards of your library, and then you can return a non-avatar creature or planeswalker from among them to your hand, or from your graveyard to your hand. Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. This is really important for our deck as well, because Chapter 1 makes a 2/2 Goblin with when it attacks, make a treasure. And then it's Chapter 2, allowing you to discard 2 cards and draw 2 cards is also really important, because you can discard a few of your creatures, which we'll get to later on. And then also it's really important because it puts a creature into play, which gives you a target for Demonic Dread. So sometimes it does come up that Demonic Dread, you can't really cast it because you need a creature in play. Maybe your opponent has one, maybe they don't. This is also important to have Lutri in the deck as well. Lutri is also included in the deck because it's for 3 mana. You can add it to your hand, and then you can pitch cast your Fury or your Subtlety or your Force of Will or Force Negation as well. So we'll be getting to that a bit later on as well. So taking it one step at a time, now we're going to Formidable Speaker. So this came out during Lorwyn spoiler season as well, and I thought this is really, really incredible for Living End as well. So because you only have one copy of Living End, if you're ever stuck with Living End in your hand, you need a way to get rid of it and to find something that allows you to recast your Living End. So I've also included Halo Forager into the deck for this reason too. So these cards paired together allow you to cast Living End from your hand by also putting it into your graveyard and casting it that way. So Formidable Speaker, not only does it enable your Demonic Dread to put a creature in play to cascade, you can also use it to discard another creature in your deck to search up a Shardless Agent whenever you don't have Living End in hand. If you're just looking to combo off, Formidable Speaker can also be added into your Cascade spell lineup as well, because it's basically a 3-mana, suspend 1 Shardless Agent. However, Formidable Speaker does end up in your graveyard after this interaction, but this is totally fine given that your opponent's board will also be going to the graveyard too. So if you ever get stuck with a Living End in hand, Formidable Speaker allows you to discard it, find Halo Forager. This is a 3-mana 3/1 with flying that when it enters you can pay X. You can choose X equals 0 to recast your Living End because it has no mana cost. So this is a nice way to get around the fact that we only have one Living End in our deck. In other formats, in 4 formats, they typically play 3 Living Ends. So that way if you ever draw one, it's not the worst. You can always cascade into another one. What creatures are we using to enable this strategy? We've got a couple of them inside of our deck as well. A few of our 0-mana cyclers as well. Cyclers, I'll say. These are the pitch elementals from Modern Horizons. So we've got Endurance, Fury, Grief, and Subtlety for the pitch elementals. as well as Street Wraith, which you can use for pay 2 life to cycle as well. So you've got 5 0 mana cyclers in the deck, and you've got a few of the land cyclers and mana producers as well. So given that we are a 3 mana Cascade deck, given that we have Shardless Agent, Violent Outburst, and Demonic Dread, we cannot run any other cards in our deck that cost 2 or less mana, because that way we can't Cascade into Living End. And that's our prime objective, is to cast one of these 3 spells, or 4, with Bring to Light, and cast Living End without paying its mana cost. So because of this, we need ways to either get ahead in mana, or to find the correct mana sources in our deck to cast our Cascade spells above. So we've got Generous Ent, Oliphaunt, and Troll. These are the biggest and cheapest land cyclers in the game. So you've got a 5/7 with Reach, a 6/4 with Trample that pumps another creature with 2 power and Trample as well when it attacks, and a 6/5 with Super Menace, basically. So these ones are very important. Lorien Revealed is not important for this deck at all. It doesn't run it, so we're looking at only the Jund land cyclers. We also have included 3 1-mana cyclers. These ones aren't very important, but you do need a density of cyclers in the deck, as well as cyclers that have good abilities, or cyclers that have certain color requirements as well. So because we are a pitch elemental deck, we do need to have consistency in casting these cards by exiling a shared colored card from our hand. So for any of these 4 here, we need either a blue, black, red, or green card in our hand to exile to cast them. So we need to include either hybrid cards like Architects of Will and Monstrous Karabid, or we need to have a density of those colored cards as well. So that's why we've got a higher density of just blue cards as well in our deck, like Striped Riverwinder. This one's really important. It's just a 1-mana 5/5, a 1-mana to discard. If it's reanimated, it's a 5/5 with Hexproof. Architects of Will is really good too. It can pitch to your Grief, Unmask, Force of Wills, Subtleties. It's fantastic. When it enters play, you get to rearrange the top 3 cards of a player's library. If you ever want to mess with your opponent a little, you can also Architects of Will them once you've living ended and reanimated your entire battlefield. That's pretty great, because that way you can stop them finding any answers, board wipes, interaction, anything like that. So it's really important. Monstrous Karabid just being a 4/4 that has to attack each turn of Fable. We do need a black card density and a red card density as well. So I do believe this one would be next best in slot, as well as the Striped Riverwinder. Additionally, we have our 2-mana cyclers, sometimes 3 mana with Colossal Sky Turtle. Seeing the Lorwyn elementals get spoiled, I realized that 3 of them stood out to be much more important than the rest. Emptiness and the red-white one, Catharsis. They're not very good for this deck. Not only is Catharsis not good for this deck because it's a non-white deck, which means we can only use the red effect for this deck. The red effect is not all that important. It doesn't actually provide any value, whereas these 3 elementals from Lorwyn are all inside of the 4 colors of our deck, and all of these effects are fantastic. So with Colossal Sky Turtle for 2 mana or 3 mana, you can bounce a creature to its owner's hand or regrowth something from your graveyard. Deceit is another Thoughtseize in our deck, because we can't run Thoughtseize, Inquisition, Duress, all of that, so we need to offset this by including cards like Deceit, Unmask, and Grief. So these will be our 3 Thoughtseizes as well. Harvester of Misery is fantastic for our deck because it's a way to answer a hate piece in play, much like a Douthie Voidwalker or any other kind of small critters that we want to send to their graveyard as well. So Harvester of Misery also has a fantastic enters the battlefield ability. So this is a 2-mana removal spell, as well as when it's reanimated, it's a 5/4 with Menace that has the same effect of giving all other creatures -2/-2. Very, very powerful. Shriekmaw is a recent addition to the deck. I had it in the sideboard for quite some time, but I do believe it has a strong enough case to be brought into the main now. So it's a 2-mana removal spell. When it comes into play, destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature. Notably, it's not a may. You must destroy a non-artifact, non-black creature. So if you reanimate everything with a living end, this has to target something. So you're not that stressed if your opponent reanimates a few things as well, because you would have a Shriekmaw, you might have a Harvester of Misery, or you might just have a couple creatures with flying. You might have a Colossal Sky Turtle that just flies over their battlefield, or you might just have some trampling creatures with Olifaunt, or some difficult creatures to block with Troll of Khazad-dûm. So the creatures choices in this deck are very deliberate for their effects, much like in the modern deck that you see as well. We have Waker of Waves, Colossal Sky Turtle, Wistfulness. Vibrance is also a very key one for our deck too. This effect doesn't look too crazy or anything, but I can assure you that both modes in this are still fantastic. So for red, we can bolt anything, which is fantastic. We're able to get rid of like a Douthie Voidwalker again, while leaving the Vibrance in place, stacking the Enter the Battlefield triggers with the Sacrifice trigger. We're also able to kill a Keen-Eye Curator before it levels up to its, Eats Delirium ability. But the very important part of Vibrance is actually the green ability. So you're able to search your library for a land card, put into your hand, and you gain 2 life. The life gain ability offsets some of the damage you'll take early game, your turns 1, 2, 3. But searching for a land is actually really important, because we're looking to get Mysterized Village, Boseiju, or Otawara. So if they have a hate piece in play, we can go find Boseiju or Otawara. If they are a counterspell deck, we can also get Mysterized Village, which is really, really important for our deck, because something neat you can do with Mysterized Village is you can cast your Shardless Agent, hold priority with your Cascade trigger on the stack, and then activate Mysterized Village if you have 5 mana. So that way when you Cascade into Living End, it'll be uncounterable. So this is really, really sick for the deck. This is a really nice play that you can do for 5 mana in the deck, and it's really important. We've also got cards like Force of Will, Force of Negation, Sink into Stupor, Unmask, Mystical Dispute, and Brazen Borrower for its Petty Theft ability as well. So we need cards to include in our deck that are either cheap or have discounted effects as well, because we can't play anything that's 2 or less mana. So a way to get around this is playing cards like Mystical Dispute, so it costs 2 less if it targets a blue spell. So it's really good for the counterspell matches. So is Unmask. It's really good to find out if your opponent has a hate piece or if they have a counterspell. You can get that information and then work around that. With Brazen Borrower, this card is just very fine. It's not a crazy card in the deck, but you're able to answer a hate piece and then also apply some pressure after you've reanimated everything with Living End to just flash in a 3-1 with flying and put some extra pressure and just attack your opponent. We also have a bit of top end. After we've reanimated everything, what are we going to do? What's our fail state? What can we do afterwards? So we've got a Quantum Riddler, a Deadpool, Superior Spider-Man, and the One Ring. These are all very, very important. So Quantum Riddler, you can warp it in for 2 mana. If you're liking a 2 mana effect, you can just draw a card and then warp it and put it into exile. Deadpool, Superior Spider-Man, and the One Ring are all very, very good for this deck, because most likely you will have a Cascade spell to cast on turn 3. And what's your follow-up play for turn 4? You want something that's very, very impactful, something that's very strong, something that either impacts the board if your opponent reanimated creatures too, or something just to finish the game. Deadpool, it's a game finisher. Swapping text box with your opponent's creature, making them take 3 damage, or just getting an extra enter the battlefield effect of one of your other creatures as well. So you can have Deadpool enter as a copy of your Fury if you'd like, or your Grief. Very, very good. To the same effect as well, Superior Spider-Man, you're able to steal a text box from a creature in your graveyard or your opponent's graveyard. So if you pitch cast a Grief, or a Fury, or an Endurance, or if you have a creature that's been thoughtseized, you can have Superior Spider-Man enter as a copy of that and regain that effect as well, which is very cool. Additionally, if you Living End and kill your opponent's board and you reanimate yours, Superior Spider-Man now has a bunch of targets in graveyard to get extra value. Also with the One Ring, fantastic follow-up play. If you Living End, reanimate the board, attack with all of your creatures, and then post-combat cast the One Ring, your opponent can't attack you back. They're just dead. So this is able to secure you the win after you've Living Ended, or draw you more combo pieces to allow you to fuel that game plan as well. For the mana base as well, something really important that I've worked on as well is putting the correct Surveil lands inside of the deck. So notably, I have included Thundering Falls plus Underground Mortuary. These 2 lands, you want to fetch them as fast as possible every game, always. Why is this important? Well, so if we scroll all the way back up and look at our cascade spells, Demonic Dread, Shardless Agent, and Violent Outburst, all 3 of these spells, and also to an extension, Bring to Light, all of these spells can be cast off of Thundering Falls plus Underground Mortuary and any 3rd land, even if it was a colorless land that added no mana of any color. All of these spells could be cast off of those 2 lands, which is fantastic. Surveil lands are also very incredible for the deck because you can just bin a random creature, get extra value, and then cast a cascade spell to win the game. So this is all fantastic. Our mana base as well, we've got 6 dual lands. All the non-white ones are here as well. So your Badlands, your Bayou, your Tiger, Trop, Underground Sea, and your Volk. All of this as well is supplemented by the fetch land mana base as well as 2 basic lands. So we've got a forest and an island as well. These are useful because you need to be able to cast Boseiju through a Blood Moon, or cast Boseiju. You're able to channel your Boseiju or your Otawara through a moon effect to destroy any hate piece as well. So these are very necessary for the deck. There are 17 lands in the deck, just 3 of them are here in the interaction slot. Now, moving over to the sideboard, this also gets a bit tricky as well, because not only are we a combo deck and we're looking to protect our combo, we're a cascade deck, so we can't run many things that are less than 2 mana. So we have to run cards that are 3 or more mana, otherwise we'll be cascading into them. So what cards are we adding to our sideboard to protect our game plan? What cards are we adding to change our game plan post-board? How are we looking to dodge the hate that our opponents bring in? So if we're looking to control the game post-board and destroy either hate pieces, we're going to be looking for Foundation Breaker to naturalize and destroy an artifact or an enchantment. Force of Vigor, which does the same thing, can destroy up to 2 artifacts or enchantments. We're looking at Culling Ritual, which can destroy many. Also with Culling Ritual, good to know, you can cast Living Death off of this as well if you destroy enough non-land permanents, which is very sick. I've only done it once, but when it did happen, it was awesome. So you want to keep an eye out for that. If you ever have Culling Ritual plus Living Death, that's sick. Other things in our sideboard that might stand out to yourself is we do have one other cascade target in the sideboard. Inevitable Betrayal is included in the sideboard because of the egregious matchup that is the bots matchup. This matchup is very difficult. You need ways to either destroy their entire board, blow up all the artifacts, or get a really good living end off. If instead of trying to get a good living end off, because the bots deck plays so many stacks pieces, it plays so many graveyard hate pieces, we can just swap the cascade target, steal the bots player's best creature, and then attack them with it. That's pretty good. You can cast Violent Outburst on your opponent's end step, and then cast Inevitable Betrayal, take their best thing, untap and attack with it. If they have a Cityscape Leveler, that's awesome. If they have a Wormcoil Engine, if they're still on that, sick. If they have a Null Drifter, you're off to the races. That's fantastic. Ways that you can deal with your opponent's graveyard as well is something that you have to keep an eye on, because Living End reanimates both players' graveyards. You want a way to deal with your opponent's graveyard at times as well. Whether or not they are also a graveyard combo deck, or if they're just like a creature combo, or a creature deck, like a mid-range deck, and you want to deal with their graveyard. We have 3 ways in our sideboard of dealing with this too. So we've got Fairy Macabre, which is a 2/2 flyer. You can discard it from your hand to exile 2 cards from a graveyard. Sweet. Awesome. That's exactly what we want. We also have Ashiok Dreamrender. So for 3 mana, you get a Planeswalker, stops your opponent searching their libraries with spells and effects, and then you can downtick, target Plane Mills 4, and then you exile all opponents' graves. Awesome. You can also target yourself if you want to get more creatures in your bin, exile your opponents, or just target them, get some extra value, and exile a few key pieces from their deck potentially. Another cool one that I've included is Malanthrope. So it's a Simic, so 1 green-blue for a 2/2 flying. When it enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard, and you put a 1/1 counter on Malanthrope for each creature card exiled this way. So this is a sideboard hate piece that is a threat by itself, that is also pitchable to Force of Vigor, Endurance, Force of Will, Force of Negation, Subtlety. It's very, very good that it is blue-green, this card. This used to be Boggart Trawler, but after some Scryfall searching, I found that this might actually be better, because not only is it pitchable with blue-green cards, it has flying, which is very relevant too. If you're looking to side into a mid-range effect, if you're looking to dodge the Grave Hate as well, say your opponent is like a mono stacks deck, a mono hate piece deck, how can you get around that? Well, we've got Nissa, Resurgent Animist in the sideboard. So this has a landfall ability, much like Lotus Cobra, where you can add a mana of any color. If it's the second time you've had a landfall effect trigger, reveal cards from the top of your library until you hit an elf or an elemental. So, how many elementals in the deck do we have? Well, we got quite a few actually. So if we look at our deck, we've got Wistfulness, Vibrance, Deceit, Shriekmaw. Scrolling up a bit more, we've got Endurance, Fury, Grief, and Subtlety as well. We've got quite a few elementals. And then post-board too, if we're looking at elementals, we've got Foundation Breaker. That's awesome. So we have quite a few elementals in our deck, as well as elves. So with elves, we have Formidable Speaker and also Elvish Spirit Guide. So you do want to try and dodge the Elvish Spirit Guide and not hit that. Any other card that you flip into is gas and is going to get a bunch of value in the mid-range game. The Moons matchup is kind of tricky, and you do want a way to either answer your opponent's Ashiok Dreammender, your opponent Teferi Time Raveler, or just their Magus of the Moon or anything like this. So we've got Pyroglyph in the sideboard to kill any Planeswalkers, as well as like Opposition Agent to tax any searching, much like how Ashiok has this effect as well. And then we've got Obsidian Charmor, much like the bot's argument from before with Inevitable Betrayal. We've got Obsidian Charmor for the same effect. You want to be able to destroy some of their pieces, be able to get that, micro advantages here and there, and then try and set up for a win that way. We also have Submerge, Massacre, and Dismember. A few more removal spells for this deck. Ways to interact with your opponent. Massacre's fantastic. It's just broken. Free board wipe is amazing. Submerge, also fantastic. And Dismember. So we've got quite a lot of game post board to be able to sideboard into a mid-range deck that just utilizes Inevitable Betrayal, recasting it with our Halo Forager as well, because Inevitable Betrayal is a 0 mana card in your graveyard. You can just cast it with Halo Forager. So casting your Cascade spell, say a Violent Outburst, cast Inevitable Betrayal off of that, untap, cast Halo Forager, recast your Inevitable Betrayal, take their 2 best threats in their deck, and that should be a win. So we've got a lot of game, we've got a lot of creatures to discard. What are the points in this deck as well? That's a fantastic question. So if we're looking at the points in this deck, we've got Force of Will, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, The One Ring, Deadpool, and Lutri. So Lutri is also fantastic because we're primarily a Sultai combo deck, lightly splashing red. And Lutri enables us to cast a Force of Will or Force of Negation more often, as well as casting our Fury. Because not being a primary red deck means that we are struggling to keep red cards available to pitch for Fury. At the same time, Fable of the Mirrorbreaker allows us to cast Fury quite often with the treasure tokens, ramping us, getting us red mana, getting us 5 mana on turn 4. So a lot of the deck has synergistic pieces with each other, as well as the pitch elementals all working favorably with the combo plan as well. So you're just looking to run out as many resources as possible, cast your Cascade spell, Cascade into a Living End, and you're off to the races. You've probably reanimated, 3, maybe 4 creatures. Your goal is to reanimate somewhere between 10 and 20 power. If you have any favorable effects in your graveyard, that's fantastic. Also to note, if you ever reanimate Oliphaunt, just always treat it as 8 power because of the attack trigger as well. So always keep in mind the Mistrise Village combo, Mistrise Village synergy with the Cascade trigger on the stack. Boseiju and Otawara are really, really important. and this is your definitive guide to Living End in 7-point Highlander. Thank you.